Okay, so I'm just going to show you in this video the basics of setting up lighting and some materials in your scene and getting the beginnings of environmental sort of effects and elements happening. This is just a scene I was playing around with, of course, the new 3D scanned objects, as well as different materials that I found using the Substance Designer software and plugin. Um, these here are windows made using emissive materials, and I'm going to go over sort of the difference between baked lighting and real-time lighting, and a little bit about reflections as well. So I'm just going to go to a new scene that I've set up, which has a couple of objects ready to go. This here is these materials, at least this one here is one from Substance Designer, which you can go and get a free student copy of. And with Substance Designer, you just bring the materials straight in. It also gives you access to a library of shared resources online, so you can download free materials that other people have made in the Substance Designer software and use those in your projects. Before I go into lighting, I'll also just explain for some people who haven't seen this yet that you can create a terrain that your first-person camera can operate on. If you go to Game Object, 3D Object, Terrain, it creates this big square, which is a terrain. And this operates a little differently to other 3D objects in that you can use the inspector to paint height onto your terrain. So I might just sort of make a little, some mountains and whatever. You can change the brush you're using, so you can do sort of interesting effects. Oh no. Snooze. I do not want you to update right now, Windows. And you can play around with that. You can also do things like paint a specific height if you want it to be flat. You can smooth that if you want to, like so. You can also choose the textures. So if I add a texture here, I can, I'm going to just go, I'll just use sand. It comes built in. If you choose that and you go add, it'll automatically become sand. And you can, if you add textures in here, you can paint those onto the surface. So actually let's just try and do that now. Let's add, I think grass is one as well. Grass hill. Add that, and then if you select that, you can paint it on like that. You can also add trees. So if I go add tree, I think there is a tree that comes, it's maybe palm, I think, no, yes, palm desktop. If you add a tree, you can then, oops, it's too much, tree density, let's bring that right down. You can paint trees onto your landscape, and of course you can set those to be. You can add your own trees and have a variety of them there. Why is my scene is chugging for some reason? I think it's because it's trying to calculate the lighting, which I'm going to go over as well. It's just hope that that comes back. I might just turn off auto generate there. I'll explain what that is in a minute. Another useful environmental thing that you can add is, of course, if you go to Assets, Import Package, Environment, you will find that there is, in your standard assets, there should be water, and there I just go into water, and you always go to prefabs. There's water pro. Oh wait, I don't want water pro, I want, what's water for? There's a bunch of different ones, like there's this sort of simple one that has waves like that, but I don't usually use this one. There's this advanced one, and I don't use this one, or haven't tried it really either. I usually use one, and it seems to be missing. I think it's this one. Yeah, Water Pro Daytime, which is more like a sort of, it has a really nice reflection just for getting something quick. But if you want more advanced features to your water, of course, that probably won't do. So I very quickly set up an already quite attractive environment just using some of those built-in features. Another built-in feature, of course, is the skybox, and the skybox is really important. We need to look at the lighting tab here. So to find the lighting tab, go Window and then choose where's it gone? Lighting and Settings, and I always put mine as a tab over here. I drag it over here. You can see that in lighting you're setting up a skybox material, and I think I've got there's other ones. You can find free skyboxes on the internet. You can have a look at those. And basically the skybox, if you see here, environment lighting source skybox, the environment will kind of be colored in the way that the skybox, the colors that are in it, as a kind of an ambient source of light. So you see that the lighting is subtly changing there. If we choose something weird, maybe, I've got so many materials here, what's something else? If I just choose a pink material, you see now that the world has got a kind of a pink color to it in its ambient lighting. Let's just go back to a skybox here. And a skybox material, if we go and have a look at it, is, if you look at it in the inspector, it's just a material that takes 6 images, and basically it's a box. It's just a box that is around the world, that is fixed to the camera, so it always moves with the camera and looks like that it's behind everything as a result. So if you have a front, back, left, right, up and down picture, you can compose your own skybox material by going right click, create material, and then in the shader choose skybox 6-sided. But there's also another kind of skybox that is useful, that works with Unity, and that's called a procedural skybox. You can go create material again, we'll call it procedural, and I've used this a couple of times. You can go skybox, in the shader, skybox, procedural, and then in the lighting we'll just apply our procedural skybox material, which is the default material that it actually uses. And let's go back to that, and you can change the color, you can change the size of the sun, you can change the other elements about this skybox. And because these are sliders, you can always update them at runtime. So if you wanted to have a changing time of day or setting sun or rising sun, you could change these sliders at real time using C#. And you can change the colors of the skybox as well. Why is that? For some strange effects, and you can see that it picks up those colors in the environment. Exposure. Now the other thing that the skybox does, you see it says sun source, none. Every scene comes with a directional light, and if you remember, the directional light is like a permanent all-round light for the scene that operates like a sun. If we drag that directional light to the sun source, this angle, see if we rotate it, the sun actually changes with the angle of that directional light. So if you wanted to have a nighttime and daytime, that is how you would do it. Now because if you have that changing, that means you have to use real-time lighting, because the environment has to calculate that lighting and its changes as it operates, as it runs. So that's kind of what it means by ambient mode real-time. If the sun didn't move and you didn't want the computer to process changes in the lighting, you could bake that lighting by choosing baked. I'm actually going to auto-generate some light now. What I'm going to do is disable this terrain, because otherwise it's going to calculate all that lighting. And now we've properly seen the effect of the ambient light there on the objects after that baking. So anyway, so what I want to explain now is the difference between baked and ambient lighting. So what I'm going to do is create some cubes. I'm just going to pause this while. Actually, I am going to show you, because there's a useful tool that I'm going to mention. I've just hit Control D to duplicate this cube, and I'm going to turn it into like a little box room. So Control D again, or Apple D on a Mac, and I'm going to create this little boxed room. Now if you're in the Move tool and you hold V, you can do what's called vertex snap. That didn't snap it to the right spot there, which perfectly snaps vertices to other vertices. So holding V on the keyboard and snap. I'm going to turn off the ambient lighting in a minute because I'm going to use a dark room, and I'm just going to increase the size of this floor and maybe just turn off these objects. And I am actually going to turn this off now. I'm just going to go none. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a empty game object called disco. I'm going to also delete these waters. I'm going to create a series of lights. So I'm going to have I'm going to use spotlights, and I'm going to just, so I want the disco ball in the middle of this room. I'm going to have the spotlights as children of the disco ball. I always forget how to change the range. Here we go. So range, yep, there we see it's affecting the ground. Intensity, bring that up a bit. Now I'm going to need a bunch of those. to rotate that and negative, oh wait, 180 and 90 and wait, no, what is it, 270, okay, and I think I need one more, yep, zero, okay, so I've got a bunch of different lights here. Now inside lights you can change the colors, and as I've already shown you, you can change the intensity of those as well. So let's just make each light a different color. Oh, I've got two lights there, do I? Yeah. Okay. Red, yellow, pink, and green. And I'm going to create a little script. That's not the script I want. Just call it rotate. Come on, so slow. While I'm waiting for that, I'm also going to, I think I've got a black material here. Just to get rid of the, I want it to be completely dark. Hang on, I need to, yeah, source, environment, lighting, color, here we go. I want it to be completely dark, and I want to turn that light off. So we're only going to see the result of these lights. Anyway, so in my script I'm just going to go void update transform dot rotate 0 10 x time, no, need to create a variable, public float x 0x times time dot delta time 0, and that's it. Just check there's no errors. Nope. So on my disco ball, come on, why are you so slow? Rotate, and we'll make that 10, so that if I look at my room and hit play, we should see those lights moving around rotationally. Good. So, let's also just increase the intensity to like a lot because it's so dark. Can't see very much. Let's check that again. Yep. And how about we put a couple of objects in there so that we can see the effect of that light on a real-time object. And another one. Good. Okay, so this is real-time lighting. Lighting that is calculated because it is moving around. If you're making a torch light or something, you want to use real-time lighting. You can also set those settings here on the light itself. You're saying this is a real-time light. Now the other option, of course, is to bake the lighting. So if we don't want this to move, and we change all of these to be baked, you see that they've all gone dark because we have to process the baked lighting. So that has not generated. What am I doing wrong? Mixed lighting. Hang on a second. Oh, of course. It's because baked lighting needs to go onto static objects. So every object that is part of your scene that does not sort of move needs to be set to static up here. So I'm going to set all of these to static, and you'll see when we change to static it starts to do this thing called calculating the lighting jobs. That means it's using the processor to calculate how the lighting should appear in the scene based on the baked lights. It takes a lot, if you've got a lot of lights in your scene, for the computer to do all this calculation, but it will be less calculation for the actual running of the application once you've made it. Whereas the real-time lighting is calculated every frame by the processor. The baked lighting is kind of like an extra skin that it puts onto static objects where the lighting it does not change. And that can take some time, so I'm just going to wait for that to process. So it's finished calculating the lighting, and you'll see it has a much more sort of ambient, mixed feeling to it, because it's not only calculating the pure set of pixels that light hits, but it's also calculating the reflections of the light. So it has a much more, the room feels like it has much more natural lighting than when it was just real time and everything was black and moving around the space. I also removed that skybox material. I just put none instead. And you notice these are not lit because I haven't set them to static to interact with the baked lighting. So we'll turn those on as well, and it will start to calculate those. And you can keep working while it's doing that. Now, what I'm also going to show you is how to create glowing and illuminated objects. So one way to do that is, well, you can use lights first of all to create obviously light in the scene. So mostly you use sorry, where am I looking? Point lights. They're the most common use of light. You can see that it's how it's lighting up that corner there. We could bake that if we wanted that to be a fixed light. I which I'm not going to do that yet. So there's point lights, you just put them around your scene to light things and give them a bit of a glow. But the other thing you can do is make an emissive material. So let's just go ahead and create a standard material. We'll call it glowy. And this is a standard material. I'm going to make it turquoise. I'm going to put it on, let's put it on a, let's create a cylinder, rotate that, make it bigger. I'm going to put that on there. And it's confusing at the moment to look at because it's not baked, so there's no, so technically for this object, as it's still a real-time object, there's no lights actually working on it because the only lights in the scene are baked lights. It's got this glowing material, and we want it to be what's called emissive. So if we turn the emission on and we say it's emitting a certain glowing color, now it lights up, but it doesn't glow yet because it needs to be set as a static object. And once it's set as static, the environment will calculate the lighting that it's giving off for the environment. Something cool you can do with emissive objects is if you create, let's create another cube, and say you open Photoshop, 1 second. Let's create a new square image, 512 by 512. If you make a black background and then we'll put some white dots, oops, where I want that to be pixels. I'm just going to put any old white dots. Save as. Where are we? Studio. Dots. We saved our dots into here. We put that on the cube. And, oh god, I am going to create, just going to turn my directional light on for a second. No, I'm not. We create another material called dots. Put that on here. We go emission, yes, and this time we put the dots pattern onto there, and we can change the color to, I don't know, pink. And what that will do is it will emit light, but only from the areas where it's white or not black. So you could have it on a grayscale as well for different levels of emissiveness. But if we set that to static, and let's just pause the video to see the result. Okay, so here's the result here after the bake, and you can see that this object, because it's emissive, is baked a glow effect onto the wall, and so is this cube where the spots, which aren't actually pink, they're white based on the map, what we've basically made here is a map, a grayscale map that says put light where the white is. That's given it that pink glow. And we've also got those wall cubes. And then if we played this scene, you would see that the lights wouldn't move, even though there's the script on there that's telling it to move, because the lights are baked only. And I don't know, it's paused. It's frozen or something. Yeah. Hang on. Actually, it was playing. Because it wasn't moving, like I said, I actually proved my point and I thought it was frozen. But it wasn't. It was just not moving, like I said. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make these not baked anymore. I'm going to make them all real time. And that's not, and put rotate back on. So now we'll only have the baked objects emitting light, and the rotating lights will be back as real-time lights, and we'll see what that looks like. So now you see that I've got my lights moving again, and there is a bit of weirdness where that's completely black. I think turn that off. Yeah, okay, if we turn those lights off, we get we've only got the effect of these two objects on the scene. Alright, there's another kind of light. I'm going to turn off my disco lights now completely. Called an area light. If I create a cube, for the floor, and then I create an area light, an area light projects light in one direction from this sort of square surface. So you see, it's as if this invisible square is going to be projecting light straight down. Now, area lights are baked only, so you have to make this static if you want it to pick up the area light. So we'll just see how that looks after the bake. And so you see the effect of that area light on that cube there. Something that I need to stress is that if I change, say, this wall from being static to real time again by unclicking it, that glow from the emissive material would not appear on that wall. Also, all of this lighting's fantastic if you're a VR person, but AR it's pretty useless because you're mostly going to be working with real-time lights. Okay, I've also put an object over here and I'm going to show you how to do a reflective material. So we're going to create a material here, create material, and we're going to call it shiny. I'm going to put it onto here. And the shiny material, we're going to use standard. Of course we can change the color. I'm going to leave it white. What we want to do is turn the smoothness all the way up. So smooth materials are reflective materials. Let's just, this is a real-time light here. So smoothness equals mirror. Then we can also change the metallicness, but it doesn't matter so much. If it's not metallic and fully smooth, it kind of looks like fired porcelain. If you want it more like a mirror, I think we turn the metallic up, but I can't quite tell in this environment. But anyway, to turn the smoothness up, but then what if you want it to pick up reflections in the environment, I think we need to make the object, we'll try making the object static first. Might make this light static as well. Just while it's finishing off its bake, as you can see down here in the lighting tab, you can change the settings for the light map, which is the kind of baked lighting, in the light mapping settings. So you can change the resolution of the lighting. You can see, for example, on these ones here that's a little pixelated, you could increase the light map size, but of course it would take longer to calculate. You can sort of say how intense the indirect lighting is, so that's the bouncing lighting and other things. So that's our shiny. Doesn't look very, I guess it's reflecting that light off, but it's not quite what I was looking for. What I'm going to do is wait, if I bring in my other object, which does have a shiny material on it, it's going to be black because there's no real-time lighting. I'm going to, it's fully shiny. Alright, what we need is, I think, a reflection probe, and I think that's what we're missing. So in lighting, you create the reflection probe. A reflection probe, you see when I click on it, and down here it's showing me what the reflection probe can see, and it's using this view to fake a reflection on objects that have shiny materials. So what I'm going to do is, to increase the size of the reflection probe, you don't scale it, you just pull these bits, and you can see the lighting already changing, because what it's doing is it's calculating extra reflections for me. At the moment it's calculating real-time reflections, which is why it's affecting this object. I'll put that on there and turn off my area light. But if you instead go to your reflection probe, and in this, oh, it is already baked. Oh, it's recalculating it there. I'm going to make this one static as well. Let's just see how that looks. And the material here is not fully smooth, it's sort of there, but it is fully metallic. Might also put on this one, I want the FUB normal map. Can't remember which one that is. Might be this one. Nope. I haven't given my things any proper names, so I don't know what it's supposed to be. Anyway. Yeah, I just had to make that. What was missing on there, why it wasn't working, was on my shiny material I hadn't made it fully metallic, so if you make it metallic, you will get a reflection. Now it's not always that accurate, because it's using what the reflection probe can see. So this reflection probe here can see, so what can that mirror see at the moment? It's looking at that. So it's using whatever this can see as what this can see. So if you had something, say, hidden behind this box, and it was inside this reflection probe and it was shiny, it would still see what's out here. Stuff from out here would be reflected on it even if it was hidden behind here, because it's using this image here that's produced. What you could do is give it its own reflection probe and try that. I'm going to try that. I've never actually tried that really, because I've never worked that much with mirrors, but let's see what that does. That's working even though it's not baked, but we'll bake it. And let's maybe make that all the way shiny. Too much. Now, I mean that's kind of the basics of lighting. I'm going to turn my disco balls back on for my real-time lighting. Oh, and also I might also make a window, so I'll show you how to make a window. It's quite easy. I just create a plane and say, well, make that exactly 90 degrees, put it in the wall, make it longer, then I create a material, call it window, put it onto there, change the emission to being white, and then set it static, and it basically just becomes a window. You could also put an image texture on it here so it would look like there was something outside. And we just got to wait for all those jobs to finish. Something else I'm going to turn on is ambient occlusion, actually. That calculates extra shadows for corners, and where objects are close to each other it will add shadows. It helps to make a scene look realistic. That there, what's that doing? Let's not make that static. Okay, so here's the result. And actually I found my normal map, so I put it back on this object, and that looks pretty cool. But that also automatically applied it to my mirror, but that actually looks really awesome. And you see all the lighting effects there now, and also I noticed that this extra white kind of light spot here is that might be either shining off that, or it might be part of this point light, I'm not sure. There's my window, adding brightness to the corner. So it looks from the camera. If we turn this on, we should see the real-time lights moving around. But what isn't moving is the reflections, because the reflection probe, this big one we have here, is set to baked. We could change it to real time, and then I think, no, it's not calculating that. I'm trying to remember why that's not doing that. Let me just try something. Deferred. Yes, deferred. And that's the next thing I want to mention, is that we should always be using a deferred rendering path on the camera, because that also affects something else I'm about to show you. Actually, no, that didn't affect the reflection probe. Anyway, I don't know for the moment, but I'm going to move on to the next thing. So we've got this awesome room. How about we just disable our main camera for the moment, and we bring in a first-person controller. FPS controller. Where are they? There we go. Oh, they're very small. So my environment's too big, but whatever. Oh, let's also bring up some water. Yes, that looks nice. First person controller. Lovely. And we can... So the first thing I'll do is change the camera to be deferred for reasons that I will explain in a minute. Actually, I can explain now. We want to have HDR on. High dynamic range allows us to see glow effects even more when we turn on bloom effects, which I'll do soon. So here's our strange environment. Oh, we don't have a lid on the room, so I'll just make a lid. Vertex snap. Oops. The other thing that's always a good idea to do is to actually grab all of the static objects, create an empty game object, we'll call it environment. I've spelt it wrong, but whatever. And grab all of the things that are static. So all of these cubes, this plane, cube, point light, cylinder, cube, area light, plane, put them all inside environment. Probably some other things as well, but for the moment you get the idea. So all of the things that are static are inside this one object. So you know what's still and picking up baked lighting and what isn't. What has happened there? It's weird. Why has it done that? I have no idea. Okay, something weird happening there. I don't know. Anyway, I'll leave that. Okay, so on the first person controller, I'm going to add something called post effects. To get post effects, you want to go to the asset store and you want to search for post processing, and you want to get this thing called post processing stack, and you want to import that into your project. I've already got it in here. Once you've imported it into your scene, you can go to your object that's got the camera on it and add a component called post process layer, and also add the post process volume. So you want to have on that your those two scripts. Then what you do is you're going to right click and create post-processing profile. I've already got one here called PP. And if you click on your post-processing profile, you can turn on all of the different post-processing effects that you want. I want to have bloom, which is what I need HDR for. I want ambient occlusion, I've got depth of field, and screen space reflections. You can also add more by clicking add effect and choosing whatever you like. Now on my first person character, I'm going to choose my post-processing profile by dragging it into here. Usually the effects will come up there, but is global. Let's go temporal anti-aliasing, layer, everything I think is global. Yep. Now we might just turn off. So that's the ambient occlusion. It's quite strong and weird. And this is bloom. So if I'm doesn't look right, looks a bit weird. Oh, it's because my baking hasn't finished. Hang on. My cake's not out of the oven yet. Gotta wait for it to bake before eating it. God. Hang on, that's not even covering the whole. Also, I'm going to change my reflection probe back to, it is baked, okay. Alright, we're just going to wait. Okay, so let's test that again. You can see if we go to our post-processing stack, okay, we can turn bloom on and off. Bloom adds that glow, even a much more intense kind of glowy lighting effect, like when you're playing a game and you walk outside and the sun is overexposed. So like you can really make that super kind of retro, give it that sort of soft focus, dreamy look by overexposing with the bloom. That footstep sound is horrible. And you can play around with that. Ambient occlusion is adding this stuff into the corners. What was it, 2? It's at 4. Radius will sort of blur that out, kind of like you don't want it to look too unnatural, but it adds that nice kind of solidity to the environment, especially like over here where you can see that shadow behind this object. Ooh, we actually have a nice reflection there of that object. That's cool. Anyway, so that's basic lighting, and these post-processing effects are really important, I feel. A project doesn't really quite feel complete until you've added them. They're kind of a standard for all 3D applications nowadays. I'm actually just resetting these because I was using them in another scene and I had them set up how I wanted them. Depth of field is making things blurrier the further they are away, but we can't really see that here. So anyway, I'm just going to save that. Let's just have a look back at, I think it's this one. can see it's just rebuilding the lighting, so it doesn't look that great at the moment, but see how also lighting appears on some of these different Substance Designer materials. I've got some of them are really nice, like this granite, marble, basalt kind of rock, gold, and this linoleum table is one of them. And some of these materials from Substance Designer are procedural, so you can change parts of them, like coating style, fake wood 2. You can have deep scratches. You can sort of, where's the additional damages? No, it doesn't do much. Where's the yeah, like change the damage amount. So these Substance Designer materials are really cool. And you can see in this environment I also have like these fake light shafts that were an asset I downloaded, and I've set up all these different real-time lights to subtly illuminate sections. This is also a procedural Substance Designer material that has it's actually like supposed to be zombie flesh or something, and you can change the amount of pustules on it, the veins, the color of the skin and such. These are furry materials, or like fake fur materials. They're not amazing, but they're also downloaded from the asset store, and you can use a black and white map to tell it where to put fur and where not to. Hang on, I'm just going to wait for the lighting to build. Not that important. Lighting takes forever to build. Now I'm looking for, where's my desert scene? It's this one. This is also one I was playing around with, and you can see this is also another procedural Substance Designer material that has water in it, and you can change the water level and the cracks in the mud and that sort of thing. So you've got where are we? Cracks, sharpness, cracks, distance, cracks, depth. Anyway, you get the picture. But like, you can see how nice when you combine the normal map and the really nice materials, you get some great effects. That's a glowing emissive neon mouth there. I think that the post-processing stack is interfering with it a bit, giving it some shadows that it doesn't need, but that's what it's supposed to be. Let's just look at the main camera. Post-processing. It's that one. Let's just turn off screen space reflection. These are also Substance Designer materials, this brick wall, this corrugated iron, and the skybox. What's that? That's just a Deserto. That's a procedural skybox that I showed before. Yeah, alright, I think that'll do for this video.